All right, let's jump right in. We're going to cut through all the noise and give you the absolute must-know updates in tech, economics, and law. These are hot topics for your exams, so let's get you ready.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with tech and innovation, then look at the economy and global forces, move on to national policy, and wrap it all up with the key takeaways you need to remember. Simple as that. Let's get started.
First up, we're diving into the world of tech and innovation, and we've got some great stuff for you, from incredible space manufacturing happening right here in India, all the way to the pretty surprising backstory of a piece of tech you probably use every single day.
Okay, let's start with something huge. This is a massive step forward for India's Atmanirbhar Bharat dream, especially in the super competitive aerospace field. ISRO just got its hands on the Akasha 300, a really advanced 3D printer. And look, this isn't just about getting a new toy. This is a complete game changer for how India approaches space tech. So why is this such a big deal? Well, this is where it gets really cool. A nozzle that hits 350 degrees Celsius? The power to print with super strong materials like PEEK and carbon fiber? These aren't just nerdy specs. What this really means is that ISRO can now create crucial rocket engine parts themselves, right in their own labs. Think about it. A process that used to take months can now be done in just days. That's a huge advantage in the global space race.
Now, shifting gears to AI, what we're seeing here is a perfect example of how global tech giants are playing the game now. Companies like OpenAI aren't just expanding everywhere with the same plan. No, they're creating specific, tailor-made strategies for each market. Their big picture is the Asia-Pacific, but look at their India playbook. It's super specific. They're teaming up with a giant like Tata, bringing on local pros to handle government relations, and aiming right for key areas like education and healthcare to get ChatGPT into everyone's hands.
Okay, from the future of AI, let's go to something you see literally everywhere, the QR code. But I bet you don't know its origin story, and trust me, this is prime exam material. The quick response code wasn't some Silicon Valley invention. Nope. It was created back in 1994 by a guy named Masahiro Ahara at a Toyota company called DensoWave. And the reason? Super practical. They just needed a better way to track car parts on the factory floor.
And its journey since then? Well, it's been pretty incredible. It started out as a simple solution for a car factory, right? But the real explosion happened in the 2000s when we all started carrying smartphones with cameras. That was the moment this little industrial tool just blew up and became the absolute backbone of today's digital payments and contactless world. All right, let's shift gears. We're moving into our second section, the economy and global forces. We're going to kick things off with some pretty mind-blowing numbers about India's own growth, and then we're going to zoom out to look at a major global risk that could shake up economies everywhere.
Okay, get your pens ready, because this is a number you'll definitely want to remember for your exams. 18,864 crore rupees. That is the massive, staggering value of India's sports economy, and it's growing at an incredible clip. 13.4% year-on-year.
So where's all that cash coming from? Well, this chart tells the story pretty clearly. It's basically two big slices of the pie. Media spending, TV rights, streaming, ads, that makes up just over half, at 51%. Then you have sponsorships, which make up almost all of the rest, at a huge 42%.
And any guesses on which sport is leading the charge? Yeah, no surprises here. Cricket is still the absolute king, pulling in a whopping 89% of that entire sports economy. It's really all thanks to massive brands like the IPL and, of course, the Women's Premier League, which is growing like crazy.
Now, this kind of growth is amazing, right? But it doesn't happen in a bubble. It all depends on the world being relatively stable, and that leads us to a really critical point of weakness, a global choke point that puts supply chains and energy markets all over the world at risk.
All right, here's a name you absolutely have to know, the Strait of Hormuz. You could argue that this narrow little stretch of water is the single most important strategic spot for the entire world's energy supply. It's basically the one and only exit from the Persian Gulf out into the ocean.
So why should you care about this one little strait? Well, because about one-fifth of the entire world's oil passes through it every single day. So any little problem there, even just the threat of a problem, can make oil prices skyrocket globally. And this isn't just theory, we've seen it happen. Recent conflicts in the area got so bad that the Philippines had to declare a national energy emergency. That's what happens when things go wrong in this one tiny place.
Okay, let's bring it back home now for our third section, which is all about national policy and law. We're going to look at two very important recent developments, one from Parliament and another one from the Supreme Court.
Now, this is a really crucial legal topic for your exams, so pay close attention. What we have here is a tale of two different approaches. On one hand, you've got the huge 2014 NALSA judgment from the Supreme Court. That's the one that said a person has a fundamental right to self-identify their gender. But on the other hand, you have this new transgender amendment bill. And it's a major change of direction. It moves away from that idea of self-identification and says you need a certificate from a medical authority. It's really important you understand the difference between these two.
Next up, we have a major ruling from the Supreme Court about who is eligible for scheduled caste or SC status. The court was incredibly clear on this one. They said, and I'm quoting here, once a person converts to Christianity, they can no longer be treated as a member of a scheduled caste. Pretty unambiguous, right?
But here's the thing. This ruling didn't just come out of nowhere. It's really just confirming a legal framework that's been built up over decades. If you look back, the original order from 1950 tied SC status to Hinduism. Then, in 1956, it was updated to include Sikhs, and in 1990, it was expanded again to include Buddhists. So what the Supreme Court is essentially saying is that, based on the law as it exists today, these benefits don't apply to people who convert to other religions, like Christianity or Islam.
Whew! Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So now let's do the most important part. We're going to boil it all down to the key facts that you absolutely positively have to know for your exams. Think of this as your final rapid-fire review.
First up, the Akasha 300 printer. Just remember, it's a perfect symbol of Atmanir Dart, and it gives ISRO a massive edge in the space race by letting them build critical parts right at home.
Number 2, India's sports economy. The magic numbers? Over 18,000 crore rupees. What's driving it? Media spending. And which sport? Cricket, making up almost 90% of the whole thing.
Third, the Strait of Hormuz. You just need to know what it is, the world's most important choke point for oil. And because of that, it's always a hotspot for global tension.
And finally, our two big legal points. First, remember that the new transgender bill is a move away from the self-identification idea in the NALSA judgment. Second, the Supreme Court has confirmed that SC status, right now, is linked only to Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism.
So we'll leave you with this to think about. At the end of the day, these aren't just separate facts to memorize for an exam, right? They're all threads in a much bigger story. It's the story of a country that's innovating and growing at an incredible pace, but at the same time is trying to figure out how to balance new laws, huge global risks, and the core principles it was founded on. And that's really the bigger picture here.